Liz Cheney responded to getting ousted as a GOP leader. She spoke to Chris Wallace. Let's take a look, and then we'll talk about it.
House Republicans voted this week to remove Liz Cheney as conference chair for her refusal to stop attacking former President Trump. But she says it won't stop her from running for re-election or from fighting for the future of the GOP. And joining us now from Cheyenne, Wyoming, Congresswoman Cheney. Congresswoman, I want to start with the decision by the House Republican caucus to remove you this week. We had Congressman Jim Banks, the head of the Republican Study Committee, on the show last Sunday, and here's what he said about this. Take a look.
We shouldn't be talking about Liz Cheney. We should be talking about pushing back against the radical Biden agenda, and this is all a distraction from our ability to be able to do that.
Banks was saying, with Republicans so close to winning back the House in the midterms next year, that the focus should be on what unites the Republican Party, which is opposition to the Biden agenda, and not picking fights with a former president who's now living in Mar-a-Lago near Palm Beach. What's wrong with that thinking?
Well, I think it is absolutely the case that we have to have the strongest position possible going forward so we can take back the House, the Senate, and the White House. The issue is that, you know, we cannot do that if we are embracing the big lie, if we are embracing what President Trump, what former President Trump continues to say on a nearly daily basis, which is claims that the election was stolen, using the same language he used that he knows provoked violence on January 6th. In order for us to be in the strongest possible position to be able to prevail, to be able to defeat the ideas that we see coming from the other side that are really bad for the country, we have to be a party that's based on a foundation of truth. And I'm not willing to be complicit or silent in the face of those lies coming from President Trump.
Congresswoman, I want to talk about you finally. You were on track to perhaps someday be the Speaker of the House. Now that's over. You've been removed from leadership. Your re-election next year in Wyoming is at least in question. I guess the question I have for you is, are you prepared to make this politically the hill you're prepared to die on?
Look, I cannot imagine a more important issue than whether or not the Republican Party is going to be a party that embraces and defends the rule of law and the Constitution. And I am firmly committed to being part of leading this party back to a place where we believe and advocate on behalf of policies and substance, where we lay out an agenda that helps to attract voters back to the party, where we move away from this loyalty that so many, particularly in our House leadership now, have apparently pledged to Donald Trump. The president who provoked the attack on the Capitol and who refused to send help. So I think that what we have seen over the course of the last couple of weeks is really, you know, the opening salvo in what is a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, a battle for the soul of our democracy. And I intend to play a very big role in that and to do everything I can to help ensure that we can restore our party.
Congresswoman, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Always good to talk with you.
Here's what's so funny about this. In all these interviews, she's actually not talking about her policy positions, which are grotesque and, by the way, over 90% in agreement with Trump. She's not talking about those. She's just talking about, like, look, the guy's wrong. He says he won the election. He didn't win the election. He says there's evidence it was stolen. There's no evidence it was stolen. We had over 60 courts rule on this. Let's stop being ridiculous. Let's stop being dumb. Let's move along here. So everything she's saying in these interviews is true, and she is getting obliterated online. In fact, she was so obliterated that Fox News, after they posted this clip, they had to turn the comments off. So this was overwhelmingly all the Republicans online are like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, downvote, 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 downvote. I'm with Trump, MAGA 2024. She was getting obliterated in the comment section. So here's my hope. Let us, talk about an ideal future. Let us dream together. I hope that Trump's most hardcore supporters, it makes up a smaller and smaller percentage of the country and of the Republican Party. And to be fair, so far that's exactly what's happening. As time has gone by, he's become more and more irrelevant. He's not even on Twitter anymore. So now he's down to, whatever the approval rating is, 32%, 35%, something like that. My hope is that goes down and goes down and goes down, and then it bottoms out at maybe 25%. If you have 25% of the Republican Party that's still 100% Trump train, well, then you have another 25% that's not. And so then you actually get a Republican Civil War. That would be ideal. Listen, keep it real. You want them at each other's throats. You do. You want them at each other's throats. You want them fractured and factionalized. You want them not united. And if that's the case, they'll tear each other apart, and Democrats will waltz to victory. Now, there is a Democratic Civil War, of course, too, and I'm a longtime proponent of that, and I want my side of that Civil War to win. Don't get it twisted. But the fact of the matter is, right now, this Republican Civil War is a little bit of wishful thinking. Like, the media wants there to be a Republican Civil War, but the fact of the matter is it's like 80% on Trump's side, 20% on anybody else's side, on the establishment Republican side. But as time goes by, the reality might be it's only like 25% of the party that loves Trump, but they're just a very vocal 25%. And that's why all these videos get downvoted, and they're the most politically engaged and politically active and the loudest and the most aggressive. But the fact of the matter is, there might be basically a silent, either a silent half or silent majority that's actually done and over Trump. And that's kind of what you want. And you want there to be, their heads butting. Now, the saddest part is this, though. There actually is no difference in terms of policy. So leave it to the Republicans to have a civil war and it have nothing to do with policy, and it's all about culture. It really is like a lot more about the culture war and stuff. So leave it to them to have the most substanceless civil war of all time. But they might have a civil war, and that would be wonderful, and that would be great. But as of right now, it's completely a media creation. It's, Liz Cheney trying to make herself a thing, getting obliterated by her own party. And remember, again, this isn't her talking about her policy issues where she's wrong about everything. Because she's, her number one thing is she's for endless war. But this is her telling the truth about the election, and that's getting her destroyed. So, I mean, the watching the trajectory of that party has been something else. It really has been. And I'm very curious to see what happens in 2024. My original prediction is Trump runs, he's going to win. He's going to win the Republican primary for sure. But I don't know. And maybe there's some other figure that comes along and, is able to consolidate a silent anti-Trump movement in that party. Because usually what happens is after somebody loses, the country is generally like, okay, you're a loser, we're done with you, But Trump has sort of bucked that trend a little bit, but now he is slipping slowly but surely in the polls. But I think more of that might be because he's off Twitter. But either way, it might happen, and let's sort of root for it to happen. I want to see this Republican Civil War. The fact that Liz Cheney could say obvious things like she did here and still get, destroyed is sort of hilarious to me, because at this point, trying to reason with the hardcore Trump people is just, you're wasting your breath. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your breath. Obviously, if they didn't listen to reason at any point in the 4 years he was president, why would they listen to it now? So, as Noam Chomsky says, at this point, they're barely a political party. The Republican Party is barely a political party. Or I think he says they're not even a political party. They're like a fringe cult ragtag group of extremists, of like Civil War reenactors and, flat earthers and, all right, maybe not flat earthers, but you get the point.